Students, welcome back to Asian History. Today, we're going to be talking about the Great Wall of China, really its origins within ancient China and its legacy today. So, without further ado, let's get to the lesson. And it is called Great Wall of China, 221 BCE. And even though we are really contextualizing this, setting it within the ancient world, obviously, as we may or may not know, the Great Wall of China still has influence today for its historic importance. And we really want to see that legacy over time. So here are directions for today. Highlighted text indicates you need to write and submit information to this assignment. Ensure you've completed all requirements in the what to submit section near the bottom. Participation will be rewarded for participating in class discussion if we do this lesson as a class. So step one is to analyze and discuss these images. And this is a modern map we have with the first one. So this is going to have the modern countries. Of course, as we'll see throughout this is not, China is not really even unified yet. At this point in ancient Chinese history, but we refer to it really for that particular part of Asia or that region itself. Here you're seeing modern day China with modern day states around it. But this is more so just for kind of a conceptualization of the area that we are talking about. So in the zigzaggy lines, we have the Great Wall of China, so thousands of years old, thousands of miles long. You see how big China is on the map itself. This is longer than some countries, right? Longer than a lot of countries. So just the sheer amount of preservation work that goes into it, if you're thinking about historians and archaeologists, but also the amount of resources to be able to put something like this together is quite literally staggering, if you ask me. And it's why it's one of the most interesting pieces of history, especially from Asian history and Chinese history more specifically. And this is one of the sites, the Great Wall at Mutianyu's structure. And this really is a good diagram. And this is just one of the portions of the wall. Because it's so long, they really break it up by different sites and portions. And this is just one of them. But it's interesting to see how much work they put into some of the parts of the wall. We have the battlement, which is 1.8 meters long. We have loophole for vision without being completely opening yourself up to maybe an enemy looking out at you, and opening up here parapet. And we look at the wall itself, it's 7 or 8 meters, right? So that's pretty high off the ground. 4 or 5 meters wide. That is super thick, right? Made with slabs of granite. Then you have these entire like towers over here just for fortification, as well as centralizing where people can be ready for having like supplies and all of that. And then you have watchtowers every 100 meters or so. So watchtowers, it's getting a good line of vision for basically everything between you and the other watchtowers, right? So they thought this out, man. This is like just the amount of planning that goes into this is awe-inspiring, really. And so we're actually going to go into step 2. We're going to go through this PowerPoint together. After seeing the PowerPoint, enter and submit this prompt. What were 3 uses or functions of the Great Wall of China? And what did these uses and functions tell us about the conflicts and struggles in that region? Be specific. And that'll be worth 25 points. So let's look at the PowerPoint together, and that'll be made available to you. And we're going to be really looking at quite a few pictures to go along with this. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so here's our first picture. So if you look at this, it's a little blurry, so it's very hard to see, but this does not look like modern China, does it? We see kind of these squiggly lines over here, these like deeply bolded lines. We see some maybe like river areas, right? Other dotted lines that are going throughout. A lot of different names you might recognize, like Han in here, Zheng Hu. A lot of different, really, like this is a map from thousands of, or to describe a period thousands of years ago, right? These are warring city states, or these are like warring tribes within the ancient Chinese region. Really, these are not unified as of yet. These are warring battlements that are being defended from each other within this time period. So there's a lot of inner conflict right from the context in which I'm throwing you into right now, right? All these different warring city-states competing to really exert their influence over the rest of the region. And you have some of them constructing fortification to keep out the others, right? So instead of imagining this big wall as something that just comes up out of nowhere, it's really the result of all of these other warring city-states using them against one another. Right, so it was a series of small walls that were built in the spring and autumn period. So this would have been 770 to 776 BC. And there's several small states that built small, simple walls for defense, which were made of stamped earth, literally stomping on the earth to compact it, and gravel. So they already had kind of like something to go off of for the construction of these small but simple walls, which were just used by these different city-states. And here we get kind of like a good idea, using the terrain to help you, right? This mountainous terrain, which runs through many parts of China, really gives them quite an advantage if you're able to use them to defend yourself, right? You have these watchtowers, you can see everything that you need to see, but you also have the mountains keeping some of the parts of the wall hidden, but also keeping really, like, you can have like a great view from a lot of these different watchtowers, which is just incredible to see how they're able to navigate the terrain while building this huge project. It stretches for 4,160 miles. It's built on mountaintops to keep invaders out and move soldiers quickly. The Qin Emperor ordered smaller walls destroyed and new walls connected to further major fortifications to centralize the power, which means to bring the power just to the emperor itself. The better organized you have these things, the easier it is for just a few people to have control over them, right? To delegate power to just a few people. The better the organization, the more organized the power. And that's why you're able to have these emperors, like these kings, exert so much power and have so much influence. And this is a stretch of the fortifications that were not in the mountainous region. So this might, like if you're on flat land, that might be easier to breach if you're an enemy looking in, right? They can set up those like huge ladders, if you've ever seen those ladders before that they have, where they can get over to the other side. If you're on stable land, fine. If you're on a mountaintop, no way, right? So easier to breach if you're on like this type of ground. The wall was built on flat earth, was made of stamped earth. These were parts of the various dynasties that did not run along mountaintops, and of course harder to defend. And we see some kind of like tourists here, right? And so many of these sites can be viewed today, and we're going to be actually looking at a virtual tour for you all. Again, better defense with the mountaintops. Watchtower built every 100 meters or so. They're intended to watch for enemies and light signal fires to warn people that an attack was coming. And you can see, like, you can see from one watchtower to another, even if they are more than 100 meters away, you can see if there's something going wrong. Again, centralizing that power, having it organized, like somebody fails here, somebody else is able to pick it up over there. Great design. And then you add windows, right, for even more optics, right, being able to view large amounts of land at one time, keeping a great view of the entire wall and any potential threats that could reach the wall. So it was built to keep nomadic people from going out and then coming back in with stolen property. The Ming Dynasty had most of the work done on the wall, and they used bricks and stones. instead of just the stamped earth. And then commoners, we see with like all of these different dynasties, emperors, a lot of the people who are doing a lot of the work are the lowest people on the rung. And you can imagine like all of the work it would have taken to do something like this, right? So the commoners, they use the common people, hundreds and thousands of which died from cold, heat, hunger, or abuse. And they have found remains of these commoners or these peasants buried in the wall. Right? Take that for historic or archaeological evidence. Remains of people buried in the wall because they really, really wanted this project done. It's the largest human-built structure in the world, and it also extends into Mongolia. So that's that for the presentation for you all. And so make sure you're answering that question. What were 3 uses or functions of the Great Wall of China? And what does this tell us about the conflicts and struggle within that region? And then finally, I want you to go to this hyperlink. It's a virtual tour of the Great Wall. And while you're going through this virtual tour, I want you to answer and submit these prompts. Come up with 2 reasons why you think the Great Wall has survived for thousands of years. What structural designs or its features stick out to you as being important? So this is where this picture in step 1 is really useful for imagining its different features. Maybe it's the watchtowers. I think it's like the width of it is pretty staggering, right? You build a structure like that, you got to have a lot of like width to it so it can withstand attacks. And height is important as well too. And then what is the construction of the Great Wall? Tell us about ancient China as well as modern China. Why do they want to keep this preserved even today, aside from just historical relevance? So some things to think about while you do your virtual tour. And with that, I hope you enjoyed ancient China and specifically the Great Wall of China. If there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.